I'm Professor Ernst Titovets, the author of the book Oswald Russian Episode. Now it is the year 2011, and next we're going to make a half-a-century leap back in time and listen to the voices of two young men, a medical student, Ernst Titovets, and his American friend, Lee Oswald, as they sit in front of a tape recorder, reading books, enacting plays, giving mock interviews to one another, and having a great time. You will hear Lee reading an excerpt from Othello by William Shakespeare. There Lee is trying to do his best, but blunders when he comes to "She loved me for the dangers I had passed, and I loved her that she did pity them." From the second recording session lasting close to an hour, I've chosen the three mock interviews following in the order of their appearance on the tape. In the first interview, Lee would make me the Senator of Texas, Senator Titov. Then I interview him as a notorious killer, Jack Marr, and then again as a sort of a propeller-head researcher, Professor Pepper. Incidentally, the Jack Marr interview has been preceded by Lee reading The Killers, a short story by Ernest Hemingway, which might have prompted me to come up with the idea of that nefarious character. 'Twas exactly the Jack Marr interview that seemed to have selectively attracted much attention on the part of some TV producers and others who edited it to their liking and cited out of context to create an image of a villainous character, meaning Lee Harvey Oswald. It has nothing to do with the real man. Well, so much for that. Now for the time leap.
My story being done, she gave me for my pains a world of sighs. She swore, in faith, 'twas strange, 'twas passing strange, 'twas pitiful, 'twas wondrous pitiful. She wished she had not heard it, yet she wished that heaven had made her such a man. She thanked me and bade me, if I had a friend that loved her, I should but teach him how to tell my story, and that would woo her. Upon this hint I spake. She loved me for the dangers I had passed, and I loved her that she did not pity them. This only is the witchcraft I have used. Here comes the lady. Let her witness it.
Today, ladies and gentlemen, we are bringing you, direct from the Capitol in Washington, D.C., a talk with the State Senator of Texas, Senator Titov. Senator Titov, will you give your opinion on the Berlin crisis and the crisis in Texas about the weather? Now I'll try to draw the connection between the Berlin crisis and the weather can be Texas. I think it's a very important question. So it's rather what?
You have a English accent, sir.
And so it's difficult to answer this question straight. But nevertheless, some connection does exist, and
Thank you, Senator Titov, for a very clear and objective answer to these questions. I'm sure all of the radio listeners understand the problem now. Will you give your opinion on the President's new farm program?
Well, I'll try to. President's new farm program consists of several parts which include the most important article which I'm sure influence our economy and bring common happiness.
Thank you, Senator Titov. All your articles, questions were clear and well thought out.
Ladies and gentlemen, now I broadcasted here from the courtyard. Well, the man shouting is a famous killer. Well, when he was 1 year, he killed his grandma and he hanged his mother. And now
I give the word to Mr. Jack Marr. Sir, here you have his voice.
Goddamn,
well,
give me
Mr.
a fucking machine gun and I'll shoot up everybody in the goddamn place.
Will you tell us about your last killing?
Well, there was a young girl under a bridge. She came in carrying a loaf of bread, and I just cut her throat from ear to ear.
What for?
Well, I wanted the loaf of bread, of course.
And what do you think to be your most famous killing in your life?
Well, the time I killed 8 men on the Bowery sidewalk there, they were just standing there loafing around. I didn't like their faces, so I just shot them all with a machine gun. It was very, very famous. All the newspapers carried the story.
Thank you very much. And whom do you prefer kill?
Well, it's all the same to me. I don't know. They're going to execute me tomorrow anyway. So.
Well, you know, he's a very famous killer. He will deserve his electric chair.
Yeah. Well, they're coming to get me now. I have to go. So long. Here we are in the death cell. Well, they're strapping him in. They're putting him on the chair now.
The officer is approaching the stand. He's raising his arm. He's taking the
switch.
The switch. Now.
For the last word.
Well, what is your last word?
Well, don't pull the switch.
I'll present to you a famous professor. His name is Mr. Pepper. He's going to give his interview on agriculture. Here we have several questions by our readers. The first question is, what do you think about harvest of grain this year?
Well, I think the grain harvesting this year will be particularly good in so much as the people have been following my advice about burying black cats on each acre. Black cat is definitely necessary in order for a good harvest.
Thank you very much. Well, question from Mrs. Whisker, Texas. She's asking us how to raise peppers. What do you think about this, Professor?
Well, I don't know why anybody from Texas would want to raise peppers in the first place. But if it's absolutely necessary, then you can plant the seeds in a pot of coal dust and sulfuric acid and wait and see what happens.
Thank you very much for this clear explanation, Professor. So, the question from Mr. Tommy Gun. He's asking about influence rain upon potatoes.
Well, it's a very widespread conception that rain has some sort of influence on the growth of potatoes. That's completely wrong. You should shelter your potatoes from rain as much as possible so that none of it gets on the potatoes. It causes green spots.
Thank you very much, Professor. The first from Mr. Anker. She's asking how to raise cabbage on apple tree.
Well, that is a problem with which I've been working for the last 25 years. And although I've managed to grow watermelons on a tree, I've never been able to grow cabbages yet.
Well, thank you, Professor. And the last question is from Miss Jones. She's asking us about her beets. Well, and what size they can grow?
Well, I have grown 4-pound and 3-pound beets in my laboratory. However, for the benefit of Mrs. Jones, I'd like to say that I think this interview is stupid.
Thank you very much, Professor.
Thank you for your kind attention. We're very glad to have been with you today. I want you to write in and tell us about your suggestions. If you have some advice about the program, you just send your letters right in care of
bus 707, Shanghai, China. It's your New York correspondent, Oswald, and the Moscow correspondent, Titov.